Alrighty, I think, hopefully we are live. I checked all my feeds and it looked pretty good. Good morning everybody and welcome to my wood shop. Gonna check everything to make sure everybody's getting a feed. I think I've got this set up so everybody's getting the feed now. I stream on YouTube and Facebook and on Twitch. So whatever your preference is, you can find me there usually Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 11 o'clock. I'm trying to be pretty consistent so that, excuse me, if you want to find me, you sort of know when and where to look. And that being said, it looks like, if give me just 1 second, I just want to check all of my feeds here. I've got Facebook up here, and I've got, what am I in, Chrome, and let me go over to here. There we go, and that's on YouTube, and that is on Twitch. So here's the thing, I have all of these up. So no matter which platform you like to watch on, if you would like to ask a question or make a comment or whatever, there is a chat window for each of these live video sessions. And that is the best way for me. I will periodically kind of look over and check. In fact, I'm going to switch this back to Facebook for the moment. There we go. And that gives me the best opportunity to answer questions as we go if you have them, or read your comments or whatever. And yeah, unfortunately, the last live stream was a little tragic. The only place it actually went out live to, for whatever reason, was Twitch. I have no idea what happened. My main feed going out is on YouTube, and then I have I also simulcast to Twitch and Facebook. For whatever reason, the Twitch stream was the only one that went. So if you weren't watching on Twitch, you completely missed everything that happened this past Wednesday, which is sad because there was a lot of stuff going on. And in order to kind of bring you up to speed, I'm going to do a recap of the work that was done then. And that's going to allow us to kind of push forward with some of the stuff that I have planned for today. Yeah, so I think I have all that figured out though. And it looks like all the streams are going out to where they're supposed to go, which is a very good thing because it was really frustrating for me. I actually had recorded the whole thing and I was like, oh, well, let me go ahead and cut this down and upload it. It was 2.5 hours of video, and at the end of the day, I just didn't have the strength to go through and edit 2.5 hours of video and then upload 2.5. I don't even know if I can upload 2.5 hours worth of video. And that being said, I decided to just go ahead and skip it. We'll do a recap of what we did on Wednesday, and by we, I mean me, and then we'll kind of push forward from there. The big project, as you may have seen from the title, is a knockdown table for a sewing machine that I'm doing. It's basically a table that you can use as a sewing platform for a specific style machine, and I'll show you that in a second. I covered that Wednesday as well. It's a machine made, or a table made for a specific machine, but it's a machine that a lot of people like to take from one place to another. It's really big in the quilting community, and they have quilting get-togethers and such. The problem with the machine, let me grab the machine real quick here. This right here is a Featherweight, or it's known as a Featherweight. I'm sure there's a model number that goes with it. That is not my specialty. I am not an expert at the actual sewing machine number nomenclatures, but this is probably one of the most popular vintage machines. This and what's called a red eye, or a 66, model 66 Singer. This is hugely popular with quilters. It was made from the early 1900s, I think. Don't hold me to that, but early 1900s up through the mid-century 1950s to maybe 1960, somewhere in that range. It has a potted motor over here with a small belt. It's very portable. You can plug your foot control in. Usually these things would come in a case. You could actually pack it up. There's your little work surface. It flips up. You could pack this up and you could take it with you, or, you know, stow it away or whatever. But quilters love these because they sew beautifully if they're in good shape, and they're portable. You can take them, so they can take them and do, you know, quilting and things like that on the go, so to speak. The only problem is that this is a, whoop, that's a very large saw there. This is a a raised surface, you can see that it has a bed extension right here, which is nice, but then you've got all this surface around here, which is not, you know, it doesn't sit flush. So the purpose of the table is to have an area where this actually sets down into the table through an opening and then gives you a flush table surface to work with. And when you're done, you can knock the whole thing down, flat pack it, stick it in the back of your car and go home or whatever. And that's the whole point of the knockdown table. That being said, you could leave the hole out of the table, just make it a flat work surface or a flat tabletop, and just have a little portable table that you can take with you. I purchased these plans off of Facebook. A creator on Facebook had made detailed plans. They sent them to me in a very large piece of paper that was printed out. I said, hey, can I get that digitally? And they're like, no. So these are the plans right here. You can sort of see they're well done. They are exactly 1-to-1 to size. And I took these and transferred them to some tracing paper. Took the tracing paper, transferred that to some MDF, medium density fiberboard, and which basically I use that a lot for templates. So once I had those traced out on there and are taped onto there, I cut them out, got them exactly the size, and then I used the templates to cut the finished pieces of wood. I used a flush trim bit with the template attached to the piece of wood that was cut out, and then perfectly match those edges using a flush trim bit. From there, it's just been a matter of getting the hinges on, which I actually did those, I think on Monday we did hinges for the tabletop. Let me grab the tabletop here. I'm going to move this out of the way. I'll grab the tabletop. There are 7 hinges on this table. So this is the tabletop. You can see this is the opening for the machine right there. The bed is actually on this side. There's a little dip right here so you can stick your finger in and lift that extension bed of the machine up. But anyway, you can see that there are 3 hinges in this, basically for support purposes, one in the back. It's not that big of a piece of wood back there. You can see, let me hold it up a little bit so you can see. Not that big of a piece of wood back there. But this needed more support, so there are 2 hinges here. The big thing that I was working with was getting a template to route these out because I wanted them to be flush or close to flush with the tabletop surface so that they would not interfere if you're sewing, they wouldn't catch fabric or anything like that. And also to get them spaced evenly so that when this is open, it's flat. When you close it, it does that. And people have used door hinges and such, which is perfectly fine, but I wanted something a little bit kind of, I will say, classier. But these are actually marketed as sewing machine replacement hinges. And there are several machine tables from, I'd say, the late 1800s through the early 1900s that used for opening and closing the lids of the sewing machine tables that use these particular type flat style hinges. And I thought they looked really pretty. They're brass. They look really nice. Anyway, that's what we did Monday. Tuesday, I made the holes in here and inserted dowels into the table legs so that this, once it's setting on the legs itself, it will lock in place and not slide around. So I just used some dowels. I'm going to show you that in just a second. And once I got all that done, we're pretty much almost done with this. The only things left I have to do, oh, and the other thing I did Wednesday, was I cut these to length using my track saw. I have a Triton track saw, so I could actually lay the track across the top here and then get a perfect cut, which is 90 degrees to the front sides. And I did that on both edges. I put a link to my track saw that I use. Like I said, it's a Triton. I put a link to that down in the description. So if you want to see what it is I used, I'm not going to drag it out again because I've put it back in its bag and put it away. But if you want to see what the track saw is that I use a Triton. I have several Triton tools and I love Triton tools. They're always really well performed for me. In fact, I'm going to be using a Triton tool a little bit later today. All right, so we got the hinges. We got the ends cut. I've test fitted it. I glued the dowels in. Let's go over here and look at the dowels for just a second. I'll show you what I'm talking about. Switch cameras. And let me just pull this piece of wood out of your line of sight here. There we go. All right, let me come over here. On the tabletop itself, or on the table itself, there are two cross runners right here, beams that go from one side to the other. These basically just drop in. The table is slotted, so these drop into slots, and once you get it slotted in, kind of locks the table in place like that. And the only problem is keeping the tabletop from sliding around. Well, that's where these little dowels come in. We take these dowels, I drilled holes for them, inserted the dowels, glued them in place, and now we can take the tabletop and we can rest that. The big thing here is actually, once you find one, the others just drop into place. So that's the big key, is just finding that first dowel placement, and then the others just drop in just like that. And it's locked in. So that's what we did on Wednesday. We put the dowels in, we cut the edges off, made it look pretty. And I test fitted the machine inside there. So let me show you what that looks like. The machine will come in here, rest inside here. There is additional space back here for the foot controller and space for the spindle of the motor so that it doesn't rub against the table. Otherwise, it's pretty flush along through here. Sizing varies depending on, like, whoever buys this, depending on their machine and how good the feet are on the bottom of the machine. And I'll show you, like this one, I'm going to come way in close here and show you. This one has good feet on one side and then flattened, smushed feet on the other side. I'm not sure how these got so smushed, but you can see that's kind of smushed compared to the one on this side, which is much taller and looks much better. So I'm not sure how that happened on this particular machine. This is my wife's machine. I'm being very careful with it because it would be my life if I messed it up. But anyway, it doesn't have to be perfect in here because you can always apply felt feet to the runners to get the sizing just right. And so I'm not really worried about that because everybody's feet will be worn differently. So you just want to get it in the ballpark. The big key is you don't want them too high so that there's no way to actually lower the table. So this is low enough that you could put felt feet in there if you need to raise it up just enough. I mean, it's pretty flush right here. It's a little low, like I said, on the sides that had that. I also put a couple of pieces of thin strips of wood in here just to kind of simulate those feet on this side being normal size. And this feels really good. So if you're sewing on this table, you actually have a nice surface now, much larger surface to run your fabric through. And that's kind of the whole point of the table here. I mean, the nature of the table is it's not perfectly sturdy. To do that, you'd actually need a cross runner near the bottom, I think, just to add stability to it. But that being said, it's actually not a bad little work surface. So my goal today is to do some roundovers on all the edges. I like to run an 1/8 inch roundover bit on everything. And I want to do a roundover on all the edges here. And once I get that done, basically it's some finish sanding and then time to put some stain on it and then go on from there. Stain wise, I think I will go with my stain that I always use for cherry, which is this Kona. There's Rust-Oleum. I've also got Varathane. Basically, I think it's the same company with a different name. But anyway, this Kona works really well. They call it a 3 times faster, dries in 1 hour type thing. I have no idea about their claims, but I do know that it looks really pretty and gives a very dark antique look to cherry. And that's kind of what I'm after. Whenever I do my bases, I always stain them with that and they come out really nice. Okay, that's one thing we're going to do today. Another thing we're going to do today is take these are cutoffs from the legs and the runners and such on that table. This is all really nice wood. It's already thickness to 3/4 of an inch, which is what I use for my bases. I'm going to salvage as much of this as I can into usable wood to make some bases out of so that I have very little waste left over. And you can see that's a lot of wood and I have quite a bit of it here. This is all wood that I cut out from the templates when I was making that tabletop. And that's a lot of cherry to just throw in the bin because there's a lot of beautiful, useful wood in here. So my goal is to take these. I might have to run these across the joiner first just to get them nice and flat, get a nice edge. And then once I get this flat edge or this supposedly straight edge jointed, then what I'm going to do is cut 3-inch strips out of these. That's the depth that I need for my bases. And I'm going to get as much useful wood out of those as I can. I don't know what I paid for cherry. $6 a board foot, give or take. And it's not the most expensive wood. I mean, I would say probably the most expensive wood I use is walnut, which runs about, depending on what you're getting, $10 to $12 a board foot. But you know, every penny I can save is an extra $1 in my pocket, or, you know, whatever, however that works out. And so that's my goal for that. What else we got going on today? A couple of other things in the shop. We have, I'm really sad that it didn't, Wednesday was so full of stuff. I'm just sad that it didn't work out. This is the result of, let me get a better view for you here. So this is the result of a kit that I got from Taylor Tools for a new marking gauge. And I had gone ahead and glued this piece of walnut onto this piece of block of cherry here. And then on Wednesday, I drilled the holes. I made the countersink. I made the hole here for the screw. And this actually has a threaded insert right here that you have to drill out for. And this is a brass screw for securing the rod in the tool right here. I did all of this work on Wednesday and it was great. And you just, if you didn't see it on Twitch, you didn't see it. But it was an adventure. It was something that I hadn't made before, but it's a really simple, you can make any design you want on this. This is just the design that I came up with. So you take this rod, or I think they call it a beam, and it goes into there. And I recessed this so that this cutting edge, let's see if you can see that cutting edge right there, is very sharp on the edges right here, and it's very precise. And you want to protect that, so when you're not using the tool, you cut a recess and then it's flush inside the block of wood and you're not going to damage it when you're not using it. This threaded nut just goes back in here, and this allows you to position it however far away from the base that you need it to be to make a measurement line on your piece of stock. And to give you a little demo of that, let's see here. Let's get a ruler and say I wanted to cut a line that was 2 inches, or let's just say 1 inch. I'll put this exactly on 1 inch right here. I'm going to put the cutting line on there and I will tighten this down like this. And then if I was going to say take this piece of wood right here and I wanted to go ahead and make a line all the way across this board 1 inch in from the edge, I would then take this guide, I would put it right on here, put it flush against, take this right here, a flush against the edge here, and then just mark a line. Now this is going to be hard for you to see because it is a very fine line. It's a super fine line, and I don't know that you can see that, but what I will do, and I do this a lot actually, is I'll take a pencil now and take a really fine lead pencil and just run that inside that line I just made. There we go. And you can see that it scribed a beautiful 1 inch line across my board. And it's thick enough. Basically, you're breaking those fibers. So when you cut this, if you get your cut right on that scribe line, you'll actually get a much cleaner cut because you're actually severing those top fibers and it'll get a cleaner cut. Those are usually the ones that kind of, you get those little fibers that stick up after you cut something on your bandsaw or whatever. If you scribe your line first and you get a pretty good depth to your scribe line, those fibers are already severed, so you're just cutting the wood underneath with your saw and you get a really clean line. Anyway, this is what I used to use. It is an antique. I found this at an antique shop, and along with some like hand planes and things like that. I love looking at tools in antique shops, and I actually try to use them whenever I can. The only problem with this is it uses, I don't know what that is. It's a pin or a nail or something in there that's been sharpened, and then you set your depth according to that. So if I wanted to do same process, if I wanted to do an inch on this thing, I would do the same thing where I would go here and mark my 1 inch line. 1 inch. Let me find my 1 inch. There we go. And then I would lock this down. There's a wooden threaded screw on this side that locks it down. And it works just like the other one, where you're just dragging it across the wood. But I don't know if you can hear that. Probably not. But you can actually see the little, all the wood fibers and such, that it's just ripping. It's not giving me a clean cut. It's tearing the wood on my line. It's effective, but honestly, yeah, it's an antique. We can do better, and I did right here. So this tool kit, I think they may be sold out right now. I put a link to this in the description as well. It comes with the rod here, 3 cutting heads, which is really nice, the brass insert, and the brass screw. You get all 3 of those, plus you get a really nice set of plans that walks you through how to create the whole thing. And it gives you, best of all, it gives you some, now I printed this on my printer. I didn't print it to 100%. So these measurements aren't exactly, but if you print this at 100%, it's a PDF file. These measurements will be exact, and it gives you the exact measurement placement for all these different styles. And you can actually cut these out and paste it to a piece of wood, you know, just do some adhesive to a piece of wood and then cut them out. But you can see there's a lot of different styles, some antique styles right here. There's some styles for doing double beams. So if you're running a double beam, that's what this one right here is. If you look, there's actually 2 holes and 2 screws, and they sell a double beam kit. If you're doing a mortise and tenon, sometimes it's nice to actually have them offset, like, you know, have the distances offset and scroll both lines at the same time. And this allows you to set 2 different depths with 2 different beams. So there is a kit for that as well. But anyway, it comes with this great little instruction set. And you can see, hopefully you can see right there, there's some different options that they've got on there. So like I said, for 11 bucks, I mean, go look at what you're going to pay for a nice brass and fine edge cutting tool, marking gauge. It's going to run you like 30 bucks, brand new. On here, I don't know, $11 seemed like a bargain to me. So I bought this and I'm really happy with it. It's a great little couple of day project. Today, what I'm going to do is, when I do the roundovers, the 1/8 inch roundover on the table, I'm also going to do just a roundover on this thing, just to make it a little smoother in the hand. This was a straight solid block, and I gave it a roundover as well. And that feels really good now when I'm using it. That feels really nice in my hand, but it does have some sharp edges. I could take some sandpaper and run it all over the place and whatever, but I could also just run it across my my roundover bit, and it will be really nice. The 1/8 inch roundover is probably my favorite roundover to put on things. It breaks the edge without being really obtrusive and changing the style of the piece. So that's kind of my favorite. I think I have, where's my little bit here? I think I have it, yeah, it's right here. I'm going to be putting it in a minute, but let me show you what that looks like. So you can see that this is the roundover bit, and it just has a really small radius to it. And I will put this in my table, my router table, and it'll do a really good job. It's one of my favorite router bits to use. You can't mess it up. It doesn't tear out the wood. It just leaves a really beautiful, smooth surface. I can't even remember whose bit this is. My apologies to the manufacturer. But I cannot remember whose actual bit this is. But it does a great job. Once you get it set up right, you just have to get the depth set up right, and then everything is really nice. One more thing I'm really excited about. So I got this in the mail yesterday, I think. Back before I had retired, my coworkers were really way too nice to me and got me a Woodcraft gift card for my retirement. And I'd been waiting for a really long time to actually use it because there were a couple of things I was really wanting and they were just never in stock. I wanted the Veritas Sharpening Kit, the guides and the setup tools and such from Veritas. Veritas makes beautiful tools and they're really well machined and whatnot. But it's been on back order forever. I finally just bit the bullet and ordered a back order. I think it's supposed to be shipping mid-April, whatever. But in addition to that, I also got myself another sharpening stone. I have a diamond stone set that I use for doing most of my sharpening. Oh, look, it's my daily spam call. I have a diamond stone set. It's a two-sided set, 300 and 1000 grit diamond stone that I use for a lot of my sharpening needs. But I wanted something a little bit finer, so I got this from Woodcraft, which is a whetstone. This is a 1200 and 8000 grit whetstone combination. And you can see, let me pop over here. You can see the two different materials on this. So 8000 is the lighter, 1200 is the darker. So my thought is once I finish with the 1000 grit on my stone, let me grab that and just show it to you real quick. I just keep it back here. I picked this up at a woodworking show a couple years ago and I've been really super happy with it. It's made by Trend and like I said, it's a diamond stone and it has two surfaces. All right, this is the 300 surface and then it has a 1000 grit surface right here. And this does really well for most of my stuff. The 300, I wish it was just a tad more aggressive. I might go down and get like a 100 because if you have to put a new bevel on something, it's great for if you've already got your bevel established, but if you need to redo, like say you get a chip and a chisel or something and you need to reestablish a bevel, it takes a really long time with the 300 grit to get that new bevel on there. So anyway, that's kind of a way off track. This is my 300, this is my 1000 that I use, and then I will go up and go with the 1200. Oh God, there's already a little chip in this, so you gotta be careful with these things. I did not chip, did I chip that here? I did. Ooh, this is fragile. I just found that out, very fragile. So 1200, flip it over, put a really super fine edge on at, I'll probably do like a micro bevel on the 800. The Veritas has a great little, the sharpening guide has a great little setting where you can turn a knob and it just microscopically changes the angle that you're sharpening at and allows you to put a micro bevel on the edge of your blade, on the edge of your chisel or your plane blade or whatever it is, and just get super sharp cuts. So very excited about that. I'm gonna put that over here and hopefully I won't chip it again. And let's put this back where it came from. This was a great find. I can't remember how much I spent on this. It came with the with a setup for the chisel. Let me grab this guide and I'll show you what it is here. This is the roller guide that you insert your chisel or your plane blade into. So it has a lot of, let me come back down to this camera so you can see. There is, you can go down to a pretty small, I mean, that's like a 1/4 inch chisel right there. So you can get a lot of variety. I think it goes all the way up to make maybe a 3-inch wide blade or 2.5 to 3-inch wide planer blade. So there's a lot of variation in here in the size of blade you can do. And what you would do with this, once I get the Veritas thing in, we'll do a whole sharpening thing in the shop. But this has like basically a dovetail design in there that will hold your blade centered. You just have to get it locked in and centered on here. And then what this does is it has a brass wheel at the bottom and you set that wheel in here. And then on this setup plate, it has different degrees on here and you're supposed to put, so if I'm sharpening my chisels to say 25 degrees, loosen this just a little bit, you would set this on 25 and I think I have my chisels at 30 right here. So this is at 30, you kind of get the pressure up here and then you get this locked down and I usually take a screwdriver and crank that down. but that gives you the proper angle so that when you are now on your sharpening stone or your your diamond plate or whatever, that you're getting the exact angle that you need. The only problem I have with this is that I find that this is not super accurate and repeatable. Even though there's little ridges in here, it just doesn't give me the setup that I want. The beautiful thing about the Veritas is that it has a little depth marker that slides into the chisel or into the guide, and then you slide your blade into that, and it has an exact stop. I mean, you're not gonna go past it, but it's repeatable in the same exact position every single time, so that when you are actually then taking your chisel or your planer blade and running it across a stone, you know that the angle is exactly where it needs to be. So that's why I went with the Veritas. I think it's the Mark II is the one I got. Ooh, tighten that down a lot. So the Mark II is the one I got for that. And hang on a second, I got to go over here and grab a screwdriver. I didn't realize I had clamped that down quite as hard. I don't know my own strength. Anyway, the Mark II is the one that I got, but I also got some extra goodies with it. So I think the Mark II is like 75 bucks. And then all the additional goodies for the thin blades, and I got the entire kit, which I think was somewhere around $125. Don't quote me. You can go on to Woodcraft and look it up. I do not have a link for that. When I actually get it in, I'll put a link for that in the show notes. But like I said, my big thing now is accuracy. I want to try to be as accurate as possible when I am sharpening my chisels. And once you establish a really good edge on your chisel or your planer blade, then all you have to do is go back and touch it up. So it really shouldn't be that big of a deal. Actually, you know what? Let me put this back in here. And it did come with a nice little kind of a neoprene pad, so you don't kind of like this surface down here. And it's a non-skid type pad. I actually have a block of wood that I've made with a stop in the end of it that I clamp into my vise for doing all of my sharpening. And it seems to work really well, and I will be using that. But put that back in my... So anyway, I'm very excited about that. That came in the mail the other day. I won't use it until the other piece comes back. Oh, the other nice thing is I can take this 300 with that stone right there. You have to reestablish. Once you use it, you want to reflatten that surface, because the grit on those actually wears away as you sharpen. It's kind of like a piece of sandpaper, right? As opposed to the diamond stones, which do not lose their flatness and their shape. But I can take this 300 grit right here and reestablish flat on that. So this will kind of serve two purposes, and that is very exciting. All right, so that's my trend sharpening kit. Like I said, this is okay. It's not the worst. There are much cheaper variations. This one has served me well, but at the end of the day, I just want something that is more precision, and I think that will give me a much better surface on all of my tools. And there's nothing that beats a sharp tool, I'm going to tell you right now. Sharp tools just make your life so much better. So, all right, moving on. What are we doing here? I'm moving on. I'm not moving on. Let me put this away too, just so I don't knock it off and break an end on it or something. Keep all the sharpening stuff back there. Okay, I think we are ready to go over and do some roundovers, which means I will need to set up my my router table and set the depth, put the bit in, set the depth, and then we can start doing some roundovers on all of the surfaces of the knockdown table. All right, let me just check to make sure that there are no comments, questions, queries, posers. I think we're good here. I think we're good here. All right. There's either nobody here or you're very quiet. If you have questions or whatever, please fire them at me. All right, we're gonna save this stock wood for right now. I'm gonna move this out of the way, and we will get to that in a little bit. I'm gonna take this machine right here, and I'm gonna set it out of the way. I'm actually gonna put it back here. Like I said, It's my wife's machine. She was very gracious in letting me use it for sizing, since she's not going to be using the table unless it for some reason doesn't turn out or nobody wants to buy it, in which case she might be using it. But I want to make sure her machine's safe, so I set it back there. I need to, what are we going to do? Let's set up the, I'm going to set this way back here, get it out of the way, and let's go ahead and set up the router table. I think I have a camera on that. I do. Look at that. Already set up and ready to roll with the camera on there to set up the roundover bit, just right here. All right. When I made this router table right here, this router table is just an extension wing from my table saw, and it was open. There was nothing in this section, and my idea was from the very beginning when I bought it was, oh, I'm going to put a router table in there. And it's great because I use it as a work surface when I'm not routing. It just gives me a lot more flat surface to put wood on and do projects. I stain over here, which is why the table looks like it does. This is a melamine surface right here. Melamine is great because it stays nice and flat and resists water and such. And it's all pressed wood. The top here, I bought this, okay, so you can't see my router, but it is a Triton 3-horse, 2 3/4, 3 1/4, something like that. It's basically one of the largest routers that they make, and the beautiful thing about this router is it's made to either be a surface router where you're holding it with 2 hands and routing, or you can make a modification to it and then undermount it from a table and use it as a router table. And that's great because the big thing with router tables is you need some way to lift the bit up and down inside to get it to the right height. This Craig makes a router table plate, which is what this black thing is here. Craig makes this plate to fit that particular router that I own, which is awesome. So I bought these actually together. I bought the router and then, and like I said, I bought this at a woodworking show. I bought the router at the woodworking show, and I bought the plate at the booth, like right next door was Craig, and they had the matching plate to go with it. And it was just it's a match made in heaven. The router also comes with this right here, which is basically it turns a screw or a knob on the router down below the table and allows me to raise and lower the bit. And this comes with the router when you get it. So nothing else to purchase there. I did buy, it comes with 3 of these not guides, but basically little, get the one that fits your router bit to the closest diameter here. So for this small bit right here, I would probably use not this one, but maybe the next one right here. There you go. So these little covers right here, it comes with 3 when you buy this. I went and bought this complete set, which gives you the rest of them. It also gives you this flat one right here. It has no hole in there, but it's nice because if I'm using this as a work surface, it just keeps all the dust out from, or whatever it is, from falling on the router. It also comes with the Craig plate, comes with this little wrench, which allows you to loosen these plates. So there's that plate comes off. And then what I need to do is bring this all the way to the surface. So I'm going to raise the router all the way up, and pardon the squeaking. It does squeak a little bit. And then the beautiful thing is once you get it fully raised, there's no need for a wrench. It locks in place. So that's a nice benefit. Also, it comes with 2 of these. And I'm going to grab the 1/4 inch. So there's a 1/2 inch and a 1/4 inch. I'm going to grab the quarter inch. I like using 1/2 inch bits when it's appropriate. So I have a couple of bits that have a 1/2 inch shank. And to me, it's just, I don't know, there's something about having more mass on my router bit. Let me grab one. I'll show you the difference here. So keep them over here, but let me find, oh, here we go. Ouch, sharp bits. All right, let me show you kind of the difference here. This is a 1/2 inch shank right here. This is the 1/4 inch shank. So you can see there's just so much more mass on this one. These are both flush trim bits, but you know, I use them dependent on the material that I'm doing. If I have to route, do trim, and I have to get in tight corners, I'm not going to use it. This has a 1/2 inch radius on this trim bit. This has like a 1/4 inch radius, so I can get into much finer spaces with this one. So very dependent on what I think these are. This is a Freud. I think I've got a lot of Freud bits. So usually the ones that are red are Freud bits. That being said, let me go ahead and grab this, that's what I was trying to think of. This is also a Freud bit right here. So this 1/8 inch roundover is made by Freud, and they make pretty nice stuff. So I'm just going to tighten this by hand. And the only thing I have to do with some of the 1/4 inch ones is I have to raise the shank up just a little bit. I don't flush set them all the way in. I have to raise them up a little bit, which is all right. I usually hand tighten them, and then I grab my wrench and give it a good spin here. And now that is not going anywhere. It is nice and straight and ready to go. And then I will lower this back down, which is why I love this little handle here. And then I will put the appropriate plate on top. And it has little graphic indicators which way to turn it to lock and unlock, which is really good because I can never remember. All right, let me get these other covers out of the way here. And then what we need to do is establish the depth for our roundover bit. We don't want it to cut too deeply because then it will leave a line. Let me find this one right here is a good edge. This is a good edge to work with. I usually get just a test piece of wood that has a nice milled edge to it so I can get an accurate layout. What I'm looking for, by the way, this is not plugged in. I never plug this in when I'm changing bits, or if I have to change bits while I'm working, I unplug it. Please, safety first. So anybody looking at it, because then I can reach down and move it around and know that for whatever miraculous reason, it's not going to kick on and take my finger off. I have a healthy respect for two tools in my, well, all tools, but especially my table saw and my router table. Because both of those scare me enough in what they could do that I respect that power and that ability to take a finger off or chop it into little mincemeat. And so I'm very careful when I use these tools. And by careful, I mean, when I'm doing setup, I unplug them. There's no way I'm leaving them powered. And other safety precautions when I'm using them, but that to me is like one of the number one things is to please unplug your tools before you change your blades and your bits. So what I'm going to do here is this, it's hard for you to see. This is actually hitting the edge of that blade right there. And I need it to drop in till it just kind of goes into the curve. So right there, now it's actually passing in and it wants to ride up that curve. The edge of the blade is not hitting the piece of the wood anymore. It's now just up far enough that it can slide up that curve if I needed to. What that's going to do is it's going to keep it from creating a line on here from that cutting edge. So let me see here. Let me get it just right. And then I'll do a test cut on this board. So that's not it. That's it right there. I'm going to do a test cut on this side of this board right here. This is flat and this is flat. They've been machine flattened, so I know that it's going to give me a good surface. All right, I think that's what I need to do for the depth. Let me put my tools aside so I can have a nice, clean work area here. And then I need to find my ears, which are right here. So I will put my ears on before I begin. My noise canceling software that I'm using will make this seem like it's a really quiet operation. Trust me when I tell you this is a very loud tool. And you will be thankful that I have noise canceling software because, yeah, it makes a racket. All right, I plug it in, put my ears on, and then we're just going to do a test cut real quick. All right, here we go. Even with headphones on, that is really loud. All right, so I just made a little 1/8 inch round over on the piece of this wood. Let me switch so you can see what I'm talking about here. See if you can see that. All right, this little corner has not been rounded, and then the round over continues on this way. And my whole goal with this is to make sure that it's smooth from this edge all the way to this edge. And it just gives just enough. Let's see if we can look at this. There you go. It gives just enough of an edge break there. You're breaking that edge just enough to make it feel comfortable in the hand, but not enough to change the design element of the piece. It just softens it up just a hair, and that's why I love this little bit. And that's a good depth. That's a good test. I think from there we're ready to run the pieces of the table through, or most of the pieces of the table through. Actually, you know what? I've got to do something really boring before I actually do this, which is I cut those table legs off yesterday, or not the back up. I cut the tabletop yesterday to length using my track saw. The only thing I didn't do was sand the edges of that, and I think I need to hit those with my circular sander just really quick, just to make sure that they're smooth. Because once you put the round over on, if you sand after you round over, it's going to change that round over profile, and you're going to have to do it again. So it's always better to do all of your sanding before you move on to that round over portion. I think I can do this all at once. I can clamp it into my leg here. Let me go ahead and pull the tabletop. All right. So here's what I'm talking about. I just want to sand these edges really quickly so that they are smooth. When I get ready to stain these, I don't want these to be rough surfaces. They need to be sanded down a little bit just to kind of keep them from sucking in all the stain. All right, I think that's what I hadn't thought that through, but I think that's probably the best course of action. Let me grab my sander out of the way here. It lives down there. I can probably put this in the leg vise right here. There we go. So just clamp that in really tight. That's not going to go anywhere. And then I can just sand these. I can use the circular sander here and sand that up really quick. I'm going to put some, and I apologize because you know what? I don't like to make people watch me sand. It is really not the most exciting thing. I think it ranks right behind watching grass grow and paint dry. But it is a necessary evil when you're doing woodworking. So now the other thing, and I'm looking at this, even though I cut these straight across with my track saw, because of just, the angles of how I put the hinges and stuff, they're not exactly flush right here. This is about like a 32nd of an inch taller than the front piece. So what I might go ahead and do, let me loosen my leg here. I'm going to open this up and put it in this way. Now I will tighten it down. And maybe. There we go. There we go. So that's tight. And then I will sand straight across this way, and that will be just a little bit better. All right. I think we're good here. Let me choose, what do we got here? 120. I think I've got a piece of 80 here I want to start with. And then I will move up to some 120. This is kind of like, there's a company called Abronat which makes stuff like this. This is not theirs. This is made by Diablo, but basically it's the same thing. So it's kind of see-through mesh, which is nice because, excuse me, the dust flows right through it. and it just fits on your pad here. So usually for the larger grit stuff, I will use this. If I'm creating a lot of sawdust, I'll do that. Let me plug in my sander, because you know, electricity and stuff. Of course, my cord is underneath all my other tools. So we'll plug in the sander, we will turn on the vacuum, and we will make a little noise. Like I said, lucky for you, if you have to watch me, at least you don't have to listen to me. So let's go ahead and do this. Ears on, dust on. Oh, pardon me. Way over here, dust on. Okay, that's good for that one. Like I said, it's the end of the table. I mean, I'm not really worried about it being buttery smooth, but do want, you know, a little bit. So I'm going to put some 120 on here and add to that smooth. I might actually go up to 220 just to try to really flatten off those ingrained fibers. But anyway, let's go ahead and hit it with some 120 and then we'll move on from there. That's not bad. That is not bad. Let me see if I've got a piece of 220 hanging out here somewhere. Yep, 220 right here. I try to get as much use out of my sanding disc as possible. And one way to do that, people don't really, I've never seen anybody do this, but one way to do that is just get a stiff brush and clean out the, just run it over top of it. And you'd be surprised at how much of that sanding surface actually is still really active. It's just, it was clogged up with dust. So get a stiff brush and run it over your grits and you'll get a lot more life out of your sanding pads. At least I have. It has worked for me. All right, let's get some 220 on here. This sander I'm using is just a skill. I've had it for years. I have a dust hose extension that I got from Rockler. It's a small tool dust hose thing, and it has a couple different adapters. I've got a band clamp on here. This actually broke. I need to get a replacement. This piece on here broke, and I use a band clamp to hold it on the tool, but I use it on this tool probably more than anything. So I kind of keep it attached to my little sander here, my little orbital. Like I said, this is a skill. I've had it for years, and it does a good job for me, so I can't complain. And the price was right. I think it's like 50 bucks for a pretty decent tool. All right, let's go to 220, and then we'll flip it over. We'll do the other side. All right, that feels like glass. Oh, it's just 220 is just like the miracle grit. It just, once you've gone up to 220, everything just feels like glass. It is really amazing. Yeah, let me go ahead and flip this around. We can do the other end. And now I probably could have sanded this more. There are some areas where it's just not quite finished sanded. Everybody's like, well, how do you know how much to sand in grain? And I can actually maybe show you. Let me see if I can get this camera here and show you. So let me pull this out here. Hang on really quickly here. Sorry about the motion here. All right, let me see if I can get it here so you can see this. All right, I'm gonna hold it right here. This grain right here is sanded well. Hopefully you can see there's a little bit of milkiness right here. It's not quite clear. It's a little cloudy on this side. That cloudiness is where it could use some more sanding. So if you don't have really clear grain, if it looks a little milky or cloudy, that means that like right up in this area right here, it's just right on that edge. Problem is I don't want to change this profile. I don't want to, I don't want to grind this down to the point. But if you're doing like an in-grain cutting board or whatever, you want everything to look more like this edge right here, where it's just basically, there's no cloudiness to it. It's nice and clear. So that's kind of what your goal is when you're sanding in grain. That doesn't go for everything, but for in grain's just really hard to sand. It's one of the reasons why I don't do a lot of cutting boards. If I do cutting boards, I like to do in-grain cutting boards because to me they just last longer, they work better, they're better performing. But man, they are hard work, and sanding on them is a chore. If I was going to be doing a lot of cutting boards, in-grain cutting boards, more than I do now, I would definitely move up to a better rotary sander. And don't get me wrong, I love this little skill, but it just doesn't have what you need for doing. Get this in here as flush as I can. There we go. It doesn't have the power that you need for doing something like that. So I would probably move up to like a Festool, or actually Triton makes a really nice rotary sander that like has a big handle on there and stuff. And they're gear driven sometimes, and they actually just have more cutting power to them. And that's what you really need, is just something that can really work in grain. In grain is such a royal pain to sand. But that being said, let's do some more in grain sanding, shall we? I flipped it over, and I'm going to go back to the 80 grit, and I'm going to just give this a little shaky shake, clear the stuff out of it. Put it on here. All right, put some ears on, turn some dust extraction on, and get moving on this one right here. Okay, that's the 80. I got most of that kind of cloudiness worked out with that grit. Probably about the end of the useful life of that, but this stuff usually lasts about 5 times longer than the typical paper ones, just because you can clean them out a little bit better. But let's see here. So that feels pretty good. I'm going to move up to the 120 again. And I just actually brushed out this piece of paper here, so it's actually should be clean of any clogs on the grit itself. All right, let's move up to this. It's stupid, but man, that is satisfying. It just feels so good. It feels good. All right, let me get this out of the clamps and I'm gonna set it up here for the moment. Yeah, so those are really, really nice edges now. Um, I will hand sand these edges once I'm done, just kind of touch them up again. I've already sanded them once, but I think I've done these. But I will I will hand sand these again just to make sure. Either that or I will sharpen a planer and just really, sometimes I give them just a little skim with my planer. And, but like I said, if I'm breaking the edges with this thing, I don't want to really do too much work to ruin that edge that I'm making. So, all right, unplugged from my sander. That's all good. Put the sandpaper away down here. That's all good. Yeah, like I said, that was kind of, I know, it's painful to watch, but man, those edges are like, they're like a baby's bottom. Not that I go around touching babies' bottoms, I don't. So don't call anybody, I don't. But I've had babies, I know what their bottom feels. Anyway, it's smooth. Let's put it that way. Coffee's cold, but it's still coffee. So we're gonna go with that. Oh, it's noon. I tell you what, before I get into this, I'm gonna take just a short break. I will be right back. I have to do something outside the shop. Give me a couple of minutes. I'll be right back. And I'm back. Thank you for your patience. I had to just run inside and do something really quick. And looking outside, it's a little cloudy, but I gotta tell you, I was so thrilled when I walked out into my shop this morning and it was only 60 degrees out here. And when I say only 60, I mean the fact that it's usually 35 degrees in my shop or 40 degrees in my shop. My shop is not heated. I have no heat, no air conditioning in here. So I am totally at the mercy of Mother Nature in terms of regulating temperature in here. I have a heater, an electric heater that I will run if it's not too cold. And then this year I got something really exciting, which was, it's called a Dynaglow Pro, which is a propane-based heater with, it's basically a big giant turbofan with a burner in the back of it, and you hook it up to a propane tank, and it raises the temperature in the shop in about 20 to 30 minutes. So that's what I've been doing. I would do that until it was showtime, and then I would turn it off, have my little electric heater run, and that would kind of keep it moderate. But we've had some amazing weather past couple of days. It's been in the 70s. And that means at night it's not cold, which means that my shop is not getting frigid at night. And it was a pleasure to walk into the shop this morning. So hopefully, now are we back? Everybody's back. Oh, it's not playing. Hang on a second. Sorry. Let me make sure we're to the shop this morning. So. There we go. Okay, just had to check to make sure everything was good here. All right, but anyway, yeah, so that being said, we've had some beautiful weather. I think we're not out of the woods yet for winter. Last I checked, there was some ugliness moving across the country. And yeah, what's my 10-day look like? 70 today, but then we drop 15 degrees tomorrow. And then by, yesterday I saw snowflakes on here for next week, but I do not see any right now, just some rain, which is okay. It's spring, you're gonna get some rain, but I'd take that over the snowflakes. So we're gonna be back into the 50s with lows in the 30s, but I can't tell you how much I've enjoyed these past few 70s. Been really nice. If you don't know, I'm located in the state of Virginia. I'm in Northern Virginia, and I really enjoy, for the most part, I enjoy the weather in this part of the country. We do get truly 4 different seasons. So we have beautiful springs, beautiful falls. Our summers, they're hot and humid and a little sucky, but that's okay. Our winters, they're moderate. We get some cold, we get some snow. We've had snow this year and some frozen stuff, but it's not too bad. Temp's not too bad, but it does make my shop in the wintertime. I dread it because my shop does get cold. Perhaps one day I will insulate my garage doors, and I don't know. It's just not worth it for me to install a big heater system and things like that. So for now, I'll just keep working with what I've got in it. Like I said, it's a small shop. It doesn't take long to heat up. The big thing for me is that the tools get really cold. So when you go to grab something, it's like, whoa, it's like grabbing ice cubes. All right, moving on. Enough weather chat. I'm kind of a weather nut. I do like my weather. I have my little temperature gauge right here. It's 69.3 degrees, and it's very dry though. It's 39% humidity in here. Excuse me, which comes from blowing heaters. It will tend to drop the humidity. I would suspect it's supposed to rain, so my humidity will go up. It's right around 40%, which I would consider dry. 50% is probably decent. Which, little sidebar, if you bring wood home to your shop, before you start cutting into it, let it sit for a week or two so that it can acclimate to your shop humidities, because it may be different from where you purchase the wood. I know that the guy who I buy my wood from, all of his wood is stored in an unheated or mildly heated warehouse. And so humidity levels are not that different from mine, but you never know. Like if you're getting wood from Home Depot or something like that, chances are the humidity levels in that wood is going to be much higher. Also, it may still be drying. So just a general rule of thumb when I bring wood home is I let it set for a couple of weeks before. I try to buy my wood for projects early before I'm actually getting into making them, and let it sit in my garage, in my workshop for a couple of weeks. I mean, there's exceptions, and if you're buying plywood and things like that, you don't have to worry about wood movement and stuff and moisture content. But when you're working with real wood, moisture's an issue. That also goes with taking the projects that you've made, say, into your house where maybe the humidity is higher or lower depending. that can affect your finished project as well. So take those things into account, I guess, when you're actually working with the project. All right, you know what I'm going to do here? Since I've already got this set up, I'm just going to do my marking gauge. Maybe, here it is. I'm going to run my marking gauge through my roundover tool. So I'm going to disassemble it really quickly. And then I'm going to round over all the edges on this. General rule of thumb is to maybe take off, this does not chip out at all. I mean, it's beautiful. The 1/8 inch will not give you tear out. I've never had a piece tear out from this little 1/8 inch roundover. But you need to be especially careful when you're doing edges, end grain, because end grain can catch a blade. Let me go over to this one. End grain can catch and chip out. So some people will like to do the relief cuts along with the grain, and then do the end grain after the fact. So, you know, your mileage may vary. I don't like to start with the end grain, because if you do get a tear out here, it may be further than it's going to route on the long edge. So I do my long edge first. The other thing with this particular blade is it's really pretty safe and it's not going to catch. You have to be super careful with the blade's spinning this way, all right, and it's going at about 10,000 RPM, give or take. And when that catches wood, it'll kick and throw that wood back this way. So you need to make sure that you are holding the wood correctly, that you're not putting your hand in a position where it kicks and then pulls your hand into that blade, because you pull your hand in that blade and now you've got a nice round over on your finger. Probably not what you're after. So there is that. This actually has a pin that, hang on one second. Let me see if I can find my pin and I'll show you. I got it in my little tool kit over here. I believe, I don't use it very often, but there are situations where that pin, if I can find it, where are you, Mr. Pin? Okay, well, it's probably in a drawer somewhere. People say, don't use drawers. Things go to drawers to die. It's not untrue. Anyway, a lot of tables will have what they call a safety pin, and that pin would insert into the table. It actually would like screw in and give you a post to, yeah, I'll have to find that. It gives you a post to basically counteract. So if there's a post here, I can rest my piece of wood against the post and push it in, and it's going to counteract that desire for the bit to throw it this way, because it's got a post that's pushing against it. Like I said, this 1/8 inch roundover, I've never had any issues with it wanting to kick my wood. It's such a small cut that it really isn't really an issue. So, all right, let me go ahead and put the power on this one. I'm going to plug it in, and we've already got the depth cut, the depth of cut set, and I can go ahead and get going on this. So let's fire it up. Maybe. There it is. All right. That is really nice. Oh my gosh. It's hard to explain how smooth that feels now. Go over here. Just kind of show you, I don't know if you can see, but much smoother now on those edges. I might hit this with just a little 220 sandpaper. It's not as smooth on some of the end grain areas just because it's end grain, but like I said, you hit it with a little 220 or 120 or just something. Here's a, oh, you know what? There we go. Here's a little 320 and just enough to knock some of the little fibers off. And yeah, it just feels so good in the hand after that. And it's just enough, like I said, it's very subtle, but that's why I like it. It just breaks that edge. Some people like to use like a chamfer to do that, but I just love this roundover. It's one of my favorites. All right, this is done. My cuts look good. I'm not getting any lines from the edge of the bit. I've got a nice complete roundover and it looks really clean, so I can go ahead and move on to the tabletop. Let me reassemble this really quick so I don't have to leave it sitting out here. But yeah, I tell you what, if you're doing anything where you're going to have edges where people might come in contact, touch them, whatever, just get that little 1/8 inch roundover bit and get yourself a little hand router. You know, buy one on Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace or something. You could probably pick one up for, you know, between $50 and $100 for a little hand router that somebody doesn't want anymore. And, you know, between that and that little 1/8 inch, man, it'll transform your work into just something that feels so good. Okay, enough of that. Let's go ahead and do some big cutting here. Let me clean up my table really quick. It makes really fine chips. Normally I would put a board here. Not a board, but I've got a big piece of cardboard that I put here. I've found that it really does no good to have dust collection. It doesn't do a whole lot. So I just usually clean up afterwards. Okay, now that we've got that done, I can go ahead and get my table up here and let's do some really nice edges on this tabletop. Now, I do have a couple things. I've got these clamps here. I'm going to have to remove these just so I have more ability to swing this around because they do kind of, normally these aren't in the way, but I think for this table, they would be in the way. It's a pretty large piece of wood. I don't usually do roundovers on pieces of wood this large, but I think I'll move this as well. And now we are in good shape. Okay, get my ears, turn it on, and let's go. What's this? 50. I have this. So sometimes I will just, I've got a sanding mouse here, and I will just kind of check those edges with it. This is 320 on here, so I'm not gonna do a whole lot to the edge of the table, but just knock some of those fibers off when you're doing the end grain stuff right here. Because it is end grain and it just catches for whatever reason. So that is pretty good. And do the same thing down at this end, down here. Just knocking those edge fibers off of that end grain. The rest of it feels great. I mean, it feels so smooth. It's a really nice round over. The only thing I will say is you have to be, if it's almost better to do this with a hand tool, like a hand router, because this table surface, if you've got any variance in the, like if your wood is cupped just a hair or whatever, if it's not perfectly flat, it's not going to run into that blade at the same, or that router bed at the same depth. And as opposed to a smaller hand tool, which is going to cover a lot less surface area and get your blade, your router blade, much closer to the wood where it's supposed to be. I'm going to touch this up on this edge. I need to push this down a little bit. It's not, I don't know if you can see that, but I've got just a little bit of, just a little surface right there where it just wasn't down as much as I'd like it to be. So let me try this just one more bit. Well, not right here. On? Did I turn it off? Yeah. All right, there we go. Yeah, that was that's really nice. Like I said, sometimes I just get a really fine grain, like a 320 or whatever, and just take any little frayed edges off of there, and just kind of knock off the fuzzes. I'm going to have to, before I stain this anyway, I'm going to get a damp paper towel and run it all over the wood, and that will raise the grain. And then I will just knock down with like a 320 or 400 grit sandpaper after that to get the little nibs off. So you want to make sure these edges are clean when you're doing those roundovers. Those end grains get a little bit in the way. All right, let me grab the next piece here. So I have to disassemble the table now. And I just need to find a nice place to set these so that they won't get damaged. All right, grabbing these. Now on these pieces, these are the cross members right here. I'm not going to round over this piece on the bottom because that doesn't really matter. Although, I won't do this section. I might do this part up here and here just because, like I said, it feels better on your hand. I'm going to do here. I will not do inside these slots. They do not need to be rounded over. I will do this bottom edge here and just follow that around. Yeah, I guess I can do the top parts. It's not going to change the depth of the wood. So let me go ahead and get started on this one. All right, let me grab, I'm gonna put this back in place for the time being, just because I don't have anywhere to, I don't want to knock the legs down yet. And this will keep them in place. Grab this one out of here. Go. I think still need to sand inside this one. I need to sand inside this just a little bit to make it just a little bit less grabby when I go to remove it from the legs. But anyway, let's go ahead and do this one and moving on. All right, that is both of the cross members done. And now it is a little bit more difficult because I have to disassemble the legs and not let them fall down and crash into things. So, all right, got the two cross members out. Let me grab one set of legs here. And just as I said on the other one, there's areas where I will not be doing roundovers. Obviously, I'm not going to do a roundover inside of this line right here, just because aesthetically, that's the inside of the piece. So it does not need a roundover where that seam is. I will also not do a roundover up here at the top, but I will do roundovers around, this is, I'm tricky. I don't know. Think about this for a minute. Do I want to round this over right here? And if I do, how am I going to do that? I could do it like this. If I do it this way, I can get a round over right there. And I think that's, yeah, I think that's probably how I'm going to do this is, and then I will need to round over this edge here and this edge. So doing this inside piece, I will do that with it flipped over and do, so I will take this piece right here, I will flip the whole thing over like this, route it, flip the table over, route this. Okay. Before I hop into that, let me just really quick make sure there's no questions from the peanut gallery. Not that I'm saying that you all are the peanut gallery, but no questions from the chat. Nobody chatting, nobody looking. All right, y'all can say hi. You don't have to be so quiet. It's all right. You can jump in, say stuff. Tell me you like my shirt, or that you hate my shirt, or my hat, or my big cheesy mustache that I've got right now. Anyway, let's go ahead and do the inside routes. We're gonna do the inside routes on these two sections right here. I just think that would look nice to have. But then again, how do I get that route inside here? Because that's, yeah, see, that's my issue here. It's getting this route. You know what, let me flip the whole, well, oh my gosh. I love a challenge. All right. You know what, I'm just gonna hand soften this with some sandpaper. I'm not even gonna worry about it because that's just, it's making my brain hurt and it's not that big of a deal. So let's flip this over and do the big routes on here and move on with our life. How about that? Let me clean this dust up a little bit. All right, ears on, router on. Let's do this. All right, I think that's good for this. Um, all that needs to be done now is a little finish sanding on these and yeah, finish sanding. Then put a top coat on there. Still kind of thinking about what I want to use for a top coat on this. I normally do lacquer, and I have a spray system that I could do lacquer with if I wanted to do that. But I'm thinking maybe something a little bit more durable than lacquer, like maybe a hand rubbed poly finish, something like that, just to give it a little bit more durability. But that being said, we're kind of crossing the finish line on this one. We're getting close. Finish line's in sight, let's put it that way. And for me, that's kind of always it's like I can always see the finish line. Crossing it is always my big deal. I need to cross the finish line. I have a lot of projects laying around here that just need to cross the finish line. I haven't gotten there yet. Look at that. I'm going to show you something. Here, this is segue to big projects. Look at this. Look at this big thing. This, and it's thick too. Look how thick that is. This is a very large half of an oak cookie. The other half is out in front of my house. That was given to me by my buddy Pete, who had a very large tree come down in his yard. So he gave me one of these, and I was like, yeah, this would make a great table. So I did get it flattened. Look at that, that's beautifully flattened. Because it was not beautifully flattened before. But it's just one of those things that just needs to be finished. And hopefully that'll be finished sometime this spring. I need to just do some more work on the top and do 4 hours of sanding on there, because that's what you do, and then figure out how the legs are what I need to figure out for that one. So I need to figure the legs. But anyway, that's my issue is crossing the finish line. I get really close, but this is close. I'm going to do some more sanding probably this weekend. I won't make you watch me finish sand on this. I might take the hinges back out, finish sand every piece here, and then that way they will be ready for stain. If you want to watch me stain, let me know. I could set these up and go through how I actually, it's not really an exciting process. I stain like everybody else does. I just put it on and sit and wipe it off. But if you want to watch me stain them, let me know, and I will share the process with you. Yeah. And then once I do that, it's just a matter of putting some finish on them and then list it for sale. See who wants to buy it. As for price, I haven't talked about the price on this yet. I've kind of sent some feelers around to see what things like this go for. There is a guy making these out of plywood, which is, there's actually dimensional plans in there for cutting this out of a single sheet of plywood. And he's selling it with shipping included for like 400 bucks. Plywood, right? This is cherry, brass hinges. He's also using door hinges, not brass hinges and stuff. So I'm using the really nice brass hinges. I've got beautiful cherry wood. So I'm trying to figure out what a fair price for this would be. Plus the, you know, my time gets factored into that. So hopefully when I go to sell this, it'll be in the, and I don't know that I want to ship this either, because shipping something this large can be kind of a pain. You have to probably make a box for it and things like that. So this might be a local pickup item, and in that case, it's kind of probably run, I think 400 is a bit much for plywood myself. It's just me. But I'm thinking maybe in the somewhere in the $400 to $500 range is what I'm looking at for this. When it's all said and done, I mean, it'll have you know, stain and finish, and it'll look really beautiful. And I'll take some pretty pictures of it with a machine set in it, and hopefully it'll ignite someone's passion for this table and they'll want to buy it. That's kind of the thing. Sometimes I just make stuff not knowing if anybody wants to buy them. My sewing machine bases, I know I have a pretty good market for those, and I get a lot of requests for them. So I know there's an established market for that. This, I'm not sure. This is a new item for me. So if I get people going, oh my God, yes, and when are you gonna have another one? Then I'll go through and make more of these, because I've kind of been working this as a prototype and figuring out all the things. Like I made the template for doing the hinges and figured out the spacing and figured out, you know, changes and modifications to the actual cut to make it more stable and sturdy, and placement for my dowels and things like that. So I have worked out what I would consider to be the bugs and the kinks for this. Cutting the boards out is fast. I've got templates now. I can trace around, cut them on the bandsaw really quickly, and then it's just a matter of putting a flush trim bit in my router table here and trimming them to size, and that's really super simple. And so the big thing for me is just basically the finish work, the finish sanding, you know, mounting the stuff, and then putting stain and a top coat on it. So once I get it going, it will be a little easier for me to do it. The other thing is sourcing the wood, because these are made from, I think I showed these the other day, but I made these from very wide boards, and finding good cherry that is, you know, 11 inches wide, that is, you know, thick. These are not, they don't come 3/4 of an inch. I thickness them myself, but getting them to this thickness, but this width, and finding this is not easy to do. And these are beautiful cherry boards. They're very clear, very few, if any, defects in them. You don't get this black gum areas that you find. Some of them are just filled with this little black gum stuff. And these were beautiful boards, but it takes me, it's basically a 2-hour trip for me to get the boards. It's almost an hour down to my wood guy and an hour back. And, you know, hopefully he has big, nice, beautiful boards in stock and stuff. So I kind of have to take all that into account when this is going to be more sewing machine boxes too. That's why my offcuts, I don't worry about, you know, I buy the pieces I need based on length of the pieces I'm cutting out. But if it goes over that, if the piece I'm going to buy is longer than that, it's okay, because I know that I can get usable wood out of these. Like I can get at least 3-inch strips out of this board right here and make more sewing machine bases. The bases are great because they're, like I said, they're in demand. People love them, and they provide me with a good income to keep doing things like this, where I can experiment on my own. Because like I said, nobody's paid for that. That's out of my own pocket for the moment. So anyway, we'll see how this performs once I get it all said and done. Okay, moving on. Let me get these out of the way. Should I put this back up? Yeah, I'm gonna put this back up. I'll tell you what, give me a quick break. I'm gonna set this table back up and get it out of the way. Or maybe I'll find a place to stack it for the moment. Get it out of the way of the shop because I'm gonna start milling up, and by milling I mean cutting up these cutoffs into usable boards. So give me just a minute, take a break, run get something to eat, get something to drink, come on back. I'll see you in a minute. Thank you. I had that off for the break. Oh, so all that stuff I was saying just went. That's all right. Most of it was just cutting, and I saved you from having to listen to it. So thank you, Debbie. I appreciate that. Or Deborah. You've got Deborah in there. I don't know if it's Deborah or Debbie, but I appreciate it. Let me just go real quick what I was doing over there and what I was saying. I'm getting ready to take these. This is scrap wood from my table project I've been working on. And I want to save all these leftovers so that I can't believe I had that whole section. I just talked and didn't have a single bit of volume. Oh, horrible. Anyway, I need 3-inch boards. I've got this leftover wood that's beautiful cherry. I don't want to waste it. So I milled these on the jointer, and I'm going to take these and put them through my table saw, cut 3-inch slices out of here, and that'll give me boards I can use later on for some sewing machine bases, which is one of those things that I make. So anyway, thank you. I appreciate that, Debbie. I should have checked my socials earlier. That would be awesome. Anyway, let me go ahead and change cameras over to my table saw, which is that one. And we're gonna go ahead and mill these up over here. And the first thing I need to do is set a fence width for these. Kind of get these all set up here and set my fence to, I'm going to set it to just a little over 3 inches. That gives me room for sanding and cleaning up the edges and stuff like that. So just a little over 3 inches. I do not need that much blade. I use that for cutting another project, and I really should have lowered it later. But let me lower this down. I don't know what everybody else thinks about heights for their blades. I've heard several different things, but what I kind of go with now, after watching several different people and experts and such, is I go about a little board, the top tooth that's sticking out. By the way, my table saw is not plugged in at the moment, so I can touch my blade and not worry about it. But that top saw blade tooth is just above the surface of the wood. And the reason behind that is the blade turns forward, so it's always pushing down. When you have it that way, it's always, those blades are pushing down on the wood, and it keeps the wood down to the surface. That sounds logical to me, so that's kind of what I'm going with. I've got my fence locked in here just over 3 inches. I can just ruler check that just to be sure. But yeah, I'm at about, what's that? A 1/16 over 3 inches, which is plenty for me. And I also have my, my gripper. If you don't have one of these, they're awesome. Now, 3 inches, the only problem I have is that this is not 3 inches. So it kind of will hit if I do it that way. I can run it this way and it will sit on my board. You just have to kind of move these around until you get the right spacing to keep your gripper from hitting the blade. So that's going to provide that. What this does is, I like this because it gives a stable surface, not just on the wood, but on the other side of the wood, and it just keeps you from tipping. But the biggest thing is it keeps your hand from hitting that saw. And to me, that is the biggest benefit. I'm a big believer in these. I've got 3 or 4 with some different configurations on them, and I love them. They can be a little pricey, but they're not bad. Let me grab my ears, grab my remote for my dust collection, and let's make 3-inch boards. Let me plug in here first. Like I said, the issues I have in my shop is I have very few electrical outlets. So a lot of the tools I just have to unplug and plug in as I go. But then again, from a safety standpoint, that's not a bad thing. So, and that does clear, right? Oh, let me move this over just a hair. Just a little bit. I don't want this to impact that blade as it comes through. That's perfect. All right, let's cut some stuff, shall we? Go shallow now. That way I get more surface here. it's too skinny. That gives me, there we go, nice 3 inches. Okay. Yep. Let's go this way. All right. Turn it on. Don't know where I put it. Completely don't know what I did with my remote from my dust collector. Anyway, not important. There are other ways to take care of that. All right. So getting rid of all the scrap. This is unusable for me. I can't, these are not 3 inches. None of this, I mean, yeah, none of these are even 3 inches left. I mean, I might be able to use some of these pieces. I can glue them together and make lids for some of my bases based on these pieces. So these will still get used for things, just not for the actual bases themselves. But that being said, I did get some really good stock out of this. Obviously I'll cut these ends off, but I think, let me check my measurements here. My largest base that I make is 18.5 inches long. Is that right? No, 21 inches long, that's what I thought. So 21 inches long, and I think I could probably squeeze 18, 19, 20, 21. Yeah, I could squeeze a full side out of this board right here. So I've got a couple of these boards. I can get some full size bases out of these. So that's awesome. I love not wasting wood. It's too expensive to just put it in my burn barrel. And I do burn a lot of stuff too. So anyway, all right, let me walk back over here and flip around this way. Okay, all right, I don't think I've got a lot more for today. Like I said, let me know if you, in the comments or whatever, if you want to see me staining the wood. I'm gonna, on the table, I'm going to finish sanding those. I'm not gonna make you watch me sand because that's just cruel and unusual punishment. But I will finish sanding those this weekend. And if you want, I can probably start staining those on Monday. So if anybody's interested in watching me stain, drop me a comment or let me know. And I will be happy to do that on camera. And also, I think because I'm kind of the person that always has like 4 or 5 irons in the fire, since I've milled these up, I'm gonna start dimensioning some of these for use in a couple of new base projects. Like I said, the bases are great because they don't take a long time for me to make, and they do generate income that helps me do other projects. So I will probably start dimensioning these up to the specific lengths that I need. I'm going to figure out, I'll do a little math and figure out how much wood I have, how much I can get out of these, how many bases I can make. I have a couple of other pieces. I usually make my bases in batches. It's more of a time saver for me. Instead of just doing one after the other, I try to do multiples at once to maximize my time. If I have to make a measurement and a cut once, why not make it 5 times or 6 times after it's set up? So I like to be efficient that way, make multiples of these. So I'll do a little math, see what I've got here in the way of wood, how many bases I can get out of that, and how many more pieces of wood I might cut from some other scrap over there to maybe bolster that up. And then I think that's probably the next project we'll move on to after the table's complete, is to making some sewing machine bases. And you can see what I do with those. And you can make the same thing, just don't use them for sewing machines. It's basically box building is what I'm doing. So you can watch how I build boxes. I use a little bit older joinery. So it's kind of traditional to the way the Singer made their sewing machine bases. So I'll show you that. And yeah, so that's it for today. Deb, thank you so much for cluing me into my, my lost audio, because I would have never known and just kept on rambling. So thank you so much. You have a great day too. Everybody else who's watching, have a great weekend. And I will be back here Monday, 11 o'clock in the shop. Y'all take care.